You're listening to the Mark Bradford Alchemy for Life podcast.
Well, hey there. Welcome back. You know, sometimes we do a thought experiment, right? Sometimes we talk about a concept, sometimes we do homework, and sometimes we sort of have a thought experiment because we talk about a concept we simply can't, accomplish because it doesn't exist or we don't want it to exist. And today's podcast is about the latter, about something we don't really want to exist. So this is kind of cool because we're going to do this experiment based exactly at where you are right now listening to this. If you're in your car, then that's when it happens. If you're at home laying in bed listening to this, that's when it happens. If you're riding your lawnmower with your fancy headphones, that's when it happens. So here we go. Buckle up. We've all had a power outage, right? We've all been in a power outage. They're always temporary. They're always something that either lasts a few minutes or, unfortunately, a few hours. I do know people that have had like power outages that have lasted for over a day, and that would stun me. But you know, some people have little UPSs, battery backups. Some businesses even have generators and things like that. So we've experienced power outages where we go, okay, the food in the refrigerator, I'm not going to open it. It should be perfectly fine for a good solid 4 hours, right? We kind of know the drill. We know you shouldn't go and light like 100 candles because it's risky and you may forget about them when the lights come on, and then your house burns down. So we try not to do that. Our first thing we go to in a power outage is our phone, right? Our phone provides light for us. It actually has a little flashlight function. It is something that allows us to still communicate. It has battery power, and we may even have 1 or 2 spare extended battery chargers for our phone, or we have a little UPS thing on the floor. I have both, so I can actually plug my phone in and get a little bit more juice out of it in case the thing's going to last a bit longer. I do remember there was a power outage in which I knew it was going to start to get really warm, but this saved up air conditioning, if you will, I knew would last a little bit. So I had a wireless speaker in my phone, and I was sort of entertaining myself along with having it plugged into an external battery. And I thought, oh my God, there's nothing to do. But here's the experiment. Right now, your power goes out. It's gone. Anything and everything that uses electricity, that uses electronics in some way, shape, or form will not function. It means if you're in your car stops. Whether you have an electric car, whether you have a gas car, it doesn't matter. If it's got some sort of mechanical interaction with electricity or even combustion, it stops. Even if you had a gas-powered snowblower, wouldn't work. That's it. Your phone doesn't work, which means you have no service. In fact, the places that would provide the service don't work anymore either. This is not local. So if you're in a car, hopefully it rolls to a stop. If you're in a plane, then I'm going to say goodbye. But if you're at home, in your house, that's it. No power, no nothing. You know not to open the refrigerator. If it's at night, it's dark. There's no lights. There's no safety lights. There's no nothing other than those candles that we talked about. In addition to that, some of your electronics, because of what's happened, erupt in a shower of sparks. A shower. And not a little shower either. So there's a good chance that if you have your phone in your back pocket, you may be severely burned if it's affected. But it's a random thing. So your phone might do that. Your wife's phone may not. Your stereo, your giant TV, your computer, one or more of those things may erupt in showers of sparks, and which has you running around trying to put out the fires. And you may have a disgusting smoldering slab of plastic and other elements that are smoking up your house, and you now have to run that outside. Or now your house is on fire. Or your car. And now you just left your car on the freeway because that's what your car is doing. If you're in a high-rise building, you're not using the elevator, you're using the stairs. The emergency lights in the stairs are not coming on, and you're not using your phone to get out. So what do you do? What do you do If all of your technology is gone, well, I don't use a lot of technology, Mark. Okay. So what do you do then? You can't call your friend, your mother, your father, your girlfriend, your wife. Your kids are far away. Because now everything's walking distance if you have enough time, as the old joke goes. If you're at work and you're separated from your spouse and your loved ones, your first reaction, I would assume, is to find them. But how do you find them without coordinating? Do you just start walking? You can't say, stay put, honey, I'm going to come get you. Right? Especially if she's on a bus or a subway or she was in a car and you don't know. Maybe she ran an errand after work. Maybe she's still stuck in a high-rise building that is stuffy because there's no ventilation anymore. What do? You cannot get a word to anyone. One would assume you would run out of your house, as many people do when there's a power outage. You see a lot more people outside when there's a power outage. And I became the town crier one day when the power was out, and I had some additional information from the power company. So I kind of walked around and started to tell people that by 7 p.m. their power would be on. I actually walked to a local store and had a chat with the manager there because there was nothing else to do. But now you're outside and you're trying to find other neighbors, right? Isn't that what you would do? You'd find other neighbors and people or family members, but they have to be physically nearby. If they're not nearby, you can't contact them. And no, this stuff doesn't seem to be coming back on. And it doesn't. It doesn't come back on. The power's not coming back on anymore. It'll take you a little while to realize this is permanent, but what would you do? Maybe you've already thrown your hands up and went, man, I didn't know there'd be this apocalyptic crap on Mark's podcast. But there's a reason for this. If you have responsibilities at work that go beyond this simple 9 to 5, that's not going to happen either. You're not going to get to work. No, things aren't functioning at work. No, everything's down at work because everything's down in the city and in the country and in the globe that you live in. You can't check the news. You can't find out what's happening because there is no news. There's no broadcast. There's no nothing. Even if you have one of those old crystal radios, that doesn't work. And if it did work, it would be reporting that the airwaves are clean. There's nothing but background universe radiation. That's it. I'm doing this thought experiment with you because we depend on things that we don't realize we depend on. And again, I can hear the voices of people that say, well, I don't really depend all that much on technology, but I'm saying remove it all. In addition to the fact that some of it violently removes itself and endangers you or your family in the process. If you're on a rowboat fishing and getting away from it all, you could say, well, it doesn't affect me. Well, right, until you get back to your car that doesn't work, until you have no idea where your loved ones are, until there's no way to get into the city and you realize that fresh water is probably going to be a problem, let alone the food. Because imagine what's going to happen in the next hour or so with people. Imagine if no one can contact anyone. What starts to happen? You know what starts to happen, right? So I'm trying to have you think globally and personally. Obviously, we all do personal first, right? I mean, we may say family first and things like that, and you may think about your kids before you think about you, which is rightly so and pretty normal. But that's still a tiny little tribe before you move out beyond that. You want to make sure your kids are safe. And if this happens when your kids are in the living room with you, thank God. But if this happens when they're at daycare, or kindergarten, or 6th grade or 5th grade, and that was just a quick drive in your car on the freeway for 20 minutes, and now it's going to be an hour and 45-minute walk if you're lucky. Plus, what's the teacher doing? Do they have a contingency plan? Should they? Should we have a contingency plan in case we lose all power and we're just thrown into the Stone Age? So I ask you this because it's an interesting thought experiment. It's not a horrific thought experiment because there's very little chance we're going to have to deal with this. We may deal with pieces and parts of this. We may deal with parts of our grid going down. And this may be the next stage of war, in which countries don't attack physically, but they take out people's power grid, and they take out people's ability to fly airplanes, and they take out people's ability to have clean water. That's been around for a while. Cyber terrorism is exactly that. But this isn't about cyber terrorism at all. This is about your stuff, the stuff you depend on, the magical technology. It doesn't work. You're no longer walking around staring down into your phone because your phone is smoking on the floor where you threw it because it burned your hip. So give this some thought. Not horrible, morbid thoughts. That's part 2 of this discussion. But for part 1, just give that some thought. It's an interesting thing to realize what happens next and how much we count on it. When we walk into our house, do we immediately ask our personal devices and say, hey, what's the weather? What's this? What's that? Do we turn the TV on right away? Do we open up a laptop? Do we run over to our computer that we never turn off? I'm one of those people. Do we look down on our phone that we've taken outside, to the beach, in our car, everywhere? What now? Do we get to pull our heads up out of our devices and our butts collectively and go, okay, well, so this is what the walls look like because I'm used to looking down at the floor. It's an interesting experiment. It's an interesting experiment if you think, what if I did this for an afternoon? What if we played make-believe for an afternoon? And I think this would be a great thing to do. If you want to be really adventurous after you turn this podcast off, you can act like all your shit stopped. Sorry. You can act like all of your stuff stopped. And this horrible, horrible situation I just described is happening. And it happens to you until noon, assuming that you listen to the Sunday podcast when it first comes out, or 4 hours from now, or whatever you feel comfortable with. You may even go an hour. And you may have your girlfriend or wife or your kids yelling at you, where have you been? I've been texting you. You're not answering your damn phone. I sent you an IM. Right? I mean, obviously, if you're supposed to be somewhere at a funeral or something, obviously, this is not a good idea to do that right now. But that's the nature of the thing we're talking about. You don't make an appointment for a catastrophe. It just happens. And it happens wherever you are. So using the random moment of when you're listening to me as a starting point is kind of cool. If you can't do that, perhaps you can plan this. Not too much planning, but you can think to yourself, okay, this afternoon, I'm going to do this. Right after I have lunch, I'm going to act like it doesn't work. And maybe you can involve your partner and say, hey, Sheila, I'm going to do this thing. You want to do this with me? Or this is why I'm disappearing, not because I'm cheating on you. I'm disappearing because I have this little thought experiment that I think would be kind of fun. And as always, let me know how that goes. And so that brings me to part 2. I'll just say very quickly. Where this all came from is my new book, which was just released at the recording of this. I just released it for pre-order on Kindle, and both Kindle and paperback will be available on October 1st, 2021. Thought I'd put the whole date in there just in case this is 2 years after I made this. And it is the prequel to The Sword and the Sunflower Duet. As you know, The Sword and the Sunflower Duet takes place 1,000 years from now. 1,000 years from now, according to the books, it's sort of a medieval society again. A medieval society with a few bonuses here and there, but essentially a medieval stable society with some fantastical things that have kind of sprung up. In the books, it's hinted that something horrible happened at around the beginning of the century. Something catastrophic, something terrible. Something that caused the earth to sort of start again almost. We lost a lot of the population. And it all started with the tech not working and erupting in a shower of sparks. And then it got worse. So, in promoting the book, I've had a number of conversations with people about their tech and their tech not working. Some of the conversations were quite involved and long. Most of them, unfortunately, happened in chat. I wish most of them would have happened in public. Not public like out on the street, but public as in like where I've made these posts, because then everyone could benefit from them. The horrific part that I left out from before, when we did our experiment, was that a lot more than just the tech not functioning happens in the book. So in The Sword and the Sunflower duet, we don't have to think too much about the history of the last 1,000 years because we kind of have an inkling and a feeling that something really bad happened. Something really bad happened that caused us to lose a lot of people and a lot of tech and a lot of stuff that we're lucky we even survived. But we don't really talk about it. And after writing the duet and discussing with a couple book clubs and some people and so forth, and even myself reflecting, I thought it was time to write the prequel to sort of explain what had happened. And in my heart, I kind of knew some bad things had happened. I felt that I had a vague memory as if I was trying to suppress it, which is the way writing can work sometimes. But I hadn't really described it in detail. See, I'm a happy endings kind of guy. I want happy endings. I like to write about them. But in writing this book, there wasn't going to be a happy ending necessarily because we knew what was going to happen, or I knew what was going to happen. And then I had to describe it to you. So it was not an easy task. It was a rather difficult task to talk about this and write about this for months at a time, about the pain and the suffering and the catastrophe and how people handled that. And not just handled it as a continent, handled it as a person. So, thank you for listening, and thank you for doing the thought experiment if you do it. And a million thanks if you do the homework and get back to me and tell me. And 1,000,001 thanks if you order Upside Down, which is the name of the book, which is the prequel to The Sword and the Sunflower duet. So thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me go over my time. Take care. Hey there, thanks for listening. I always enjoy your feedback. The prequel to The Sword and the Sunflower duet, called Upside Down, is now available. The Sword and the Sunflower is available as Kindle, paperback, and audiobook, with the other two, Amira and Upside Down, being available as Kindle and paperback.